Caleb Lohner is finally committed to Utah, but not Utah basketball necessarily, Utah football. Let's discuss on today's Locked On Utes.
You are Locked On Utes, your daily podcast on the Utah Utes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for making Locked On Utes your first listen every single day. We are available on all platforms, including YouTube and wherever you may get your podcast. If this is your first time listening to our show, make sure you like and subscribe. Love interacting with all of you in the YouTube comments as well as on social media, where you can follow our show at Locked On Utes on X. Today's episode of Locked On Utes is brought to you by Monopoly Go. Game off. We got to talk more about Monopoly Go. This fast-paced game lets you team up with friends for tournaments to unlock awesome prizes like unique stickers for trading, cool playing pieces, and hilarious emojis for taunting your friends. So download Monopoly Go now, free on the Google Play or the App Store. Game on. My name is JG Wistricll, former intern inside the University of Utah Athletic Department. And on today's show, I'm excited to be joined by FanNation's All Utes, Austin Eames, who recently had his birthday and just graduated from the University of Utah. So, Austin, we greatly appreciate you joining us on a busy weekend. And we got a crazy topic for you to talk about post your time at Utah as Caleb Lohner, a former Utah basketball recruit. When I was going to Utah my sophomore year, I remember passing by, just walking Caleb Lohner when he was on his visit. And Utah landed him. We were all excited. This is back with Larry Krystkowiak. Then he decommitted and went to BYU. And he was obviously at that time not very popular in Salt Lake City. Stays at Utah for 2 years and then ends up going over to play for the Baylor Bears. He's there for 2 years. And, it never really, it hasn't gone as he'd probably hoped. Former four-star guy. If you look at what he averaged last year, right? 2.4 points per game, 2.3 rebounds. He played a ton for Baylor. You look at it, he played in actually 35 games, which is tied for the most he's played in a season, but he didn't score much. And in general, he's never averaged more than 7 points at any point during his career. So it was announced today that he's finally coming to Utah. And we're like, oh, okay, sounds good. And then you see football with the potential to play basketball. To say I was shocked was an understatement. You lose track of the eligibility with these guys. And I know it's a new coaching staff and everything, obviously for football and with basketball too, like that. But yeah, I was definitely surprised when I saw the news, Austin. I'm excited for the simple fact of Lohner. For football, 6'8", 235, not a lot of guys built like that. I think there's potential. We can talk about that in a moment, but I was definitely stunned when I saw the news. How did you react to it?
Yeah, I think stunned is a good word to use. I mean, this is one we've heard in the rumor mill for what seems like weeks now that Caleb was thinking about coming to the U, and then the news broke today, and he's coming to the U to play football, maybe basketball, but he's coming to the U to play football first. What? Okay, interesting. But yeah, intriguing. I'm very intrigued how this is gonna work. Like you said, guy that's 6'8", 235 pounds. He's huge. It's kind of like, it almost feels like that last infinity stone in like Utah's tight end room. It's like we have everything else. What do we need? A guy that's giant. But he's athletic. I mean, he's really athletic. Like you said, maybe didn't score very often on the basketball court, but he appeared in all 69 games for Baylor over the last 2 seasons. So he's obviously doing something right if he's playing that many games with the team. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see his transfer to football. I couldn't find anything about him playing football in high school, so I don't think he played football in high school, like a lot of other guys that make the transition from basketball to football. So it's going to be really interesting to see how he fits in. And that's not to mention that I think Utah has one of the deepest tight end rooms it's had this upcoming season. I mean, we got guys like Brant Keithy obviously coming back. Landon King made a name for himself last season. Carson Ryan transferred from UCLA. Dolan Bentley was one of the studs from spring camp. Coaches were raving about him all offseason, and I think that'll continue here in the summer. But, like, you have so many guys in Utah's tight end room. I didn't even name some other ones, but you have so many guys, and Caleb's going to have to come in, and he's going to have to beat those guys. He's going to have to beat at least 2 or 3 if he wants to see time on the field. And I don't know if he can do that. We'll see how fast he can learn.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, and even I'll throw in Mickey Sugaturaga, right? Utah's blocking tight end from last season, a defensive end who's still trying to get settled in. I mean, yeah, like you mentioned, that's where I'm trying to piece this together and I will say, I saw reports he only had 1 year of eligibility left. I saw he played in the 2020 and 2021 season, as I thought I understood that was that season you have an extra eligibility from. Like, so that's where everything posted says he has 1 more left, even though he played, those it shows he played 4 years. So I don't understand how I don't see how he plays this fall. Like, that's what I will just come out and say. Way, you already highlighted all the guys who were there. Even if one of them gets hurt, Caleb Lohner is a heck of an athlete. How is he going to become a better route runner than Landon King right away? How is he going to be a better blocker and pass catcher than Carson Ryan? Even Nicky Sukataraga, who made the transition from DN to tight end, still played football, like the nose, the physicality, all the things that were there. And he was tasked with being a blocker. And it wasn't a seamless transition for him last year. And it would not be a seamless transition for Lohner. And just because you have, I guess, a year eligibility also means a year of football and basketball, but there's too many things that go on in each sport. I don't remember. There have been guys who played both and been somewhat successful, but that was a long time ago. Jimmy Graham and Antonio Gates. Like, I don't see how he can be there every single day with the football team and then also be there with the basketball team, learning the plays and going through everything with them. Like, they literally have conflicts all during November. So how could you do both? I'm so confused. I think the talent is there. I'll say this based on what I've also seen. If he is serious about playing football, he should redshirt. And that way Brant Keithy will be gone. Maybe some of the other guys will be gone. And then maybe next year he can crack a little bit. There are only a few guys in the NFL, I will say, that have his like 6'8" height. So that part of it is what intrigued me. But I just have a hard time seeing this be something that materializes because of how deep the tight end room is at Utah. Maybe that's why they're willing to take a chance on him and some other places weren't with the scholarship. But I just find it very difficult that a guy who, like you said, even went to Wasatch High School, played basketball. I didn't see anything about him playing football either. Is just going to pick up football and play at the D1 level right away. I don't see it. I think he's going to have to redshirt if he wants to play football, but does that mean he wants to play basketball? And then wouldn't that ruin the year of eligibility you have left? Does he maybe have 2 left somehow because he played during the COVID year? So much up in the air, Austin.
Yeah, a lot of questions. So many questions. I think we could sit here and talk the entire podcast about Caleb Lohner and all the questions. Is he going to do football? Is he going to do football this season? Is he going to do it next season? But this is where I get to be devil's advocate. It would be really cool. And we've seen it happen before, right? You mentioned Antonio Gates, Jimmy Graham. Jimmy Graham played 120 games with Miami at basketball before he made the switch to tight end. I think more recently, there's Mo Ali Cox. He's a tight end for the Indianapolis Colts. He played 142 games for VCU, competed in 4 NCAA tournaments, and then made the transition to the NFL as an undrafted free agent. Tony G, I know we're going way back. Tony G played basketball for Cal in the late 90s, averaged 5 or 6 points per game. So we've seen guys do it. Like, the transition from basketball to tight end it's not like it's never been done before. There's a lot of really good tight ends that have done it. But like you said, most of those guys were a long time ago. I think something besides just the transition from basketball to football that's interesting is, like you said earlier, his size. Like 6'7", 6'8", 235 pounds. Can't think of a lot of players, especially the ones that play tight end, that fit that mold.
Less than 30 in the NFL. I don't know about college football, but from what I looked up, there's like less than 30 in the NFL who are 6'8".
Yeah, and one of the guys I think of is Donald Parham Jr. He plays for the Los Angeles Chargers. 6'8".
I know you're a Chargers fan, so you got to shout out your guy too.
I am. Shameless plug for the Chargers. But he's a guy. He comes in, undrafted free agent, comes in every once in a while, and the thing about him is you can just chuck the ball up top, and he'll make a catch. But then again, even then, he doesn't produce much. Only a couple touchdowns. Also, when you're that big, you have the question of injuries. Football is a lot more of a contact sport than basketball, so we'll see if Caleb's body can hold up. But yeah, just to go back to the word, it's intriguing. It's so intriguing. So I'm definitely interested. I can't wait to see how it plays out. If it ends up working out, it's going to be awesome. And I think if there's any coaching staff that can make it work out, it's this Utah coaching staff. I mean, we see them switch positions all the time. So maybe they can make a player switch sports, and then maybe they can make that a seamless transition. I guess we'll see.
Yeah, that's what they're hoping to do. So I'm very excited to see If it's going to work out, it's definitely one of those things that raises your eyebrows like, huh, we're doing this. Like, oh, okay, we'll see if it works, but generate a lot of excitement.
Mhm.
It took till 2024 for Lohner to come to Utah when it was supposed to be back in 2020. So it's been a long time in the making, but I'm excited to see how it all works out. It is going to be fun to follow on Locked On Utes. We'll probably talk about it a lot more over the course of the offseason too. And we have a lot more to talk about on today's episode too. We got to talk about some of the 2025 players that are visiting Utah, and Utah landed a 2024 commit. It's a walk-on. Wanted to give him some shine too, because this Utah team's had some pretty good walk-ons in the past. So we're going to be diving into that in one moment. But first, want to talk to you all about one of the sponsors of today's episode of Locked On Utes, our friends at LinkedIn Jobs. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just another job board. They have a vast network that helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job but might be open to the perfect role in a given month. Over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. Hire professionals like a professionals on LinkedIn. And don't forget, 2.5 million small businesses use LinkedIn for hiring. That's because they are constantly finding new ways to make the process easier. They even launched a feature that helps you write job descriptions, making the process that much quicker. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's all caps, no spaces, Locked On College. And once again, that's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your jobs for free. Terms and conditions do apply. All right, Austin, let's talk some Utah recruiting. There's some really good players in the class of 2025 that are going to be visiting Utah, but want to give one of the recent commits to Utah his shine. That is Isaiah Brown, a 2024 Ridgepoint High School grad who's going to be coming up to Utah, coming from Sugar Land, Texas, and he's going to be joining this Utah team. And this is a guy in Brown who is going to be a walk-on, as I mentioned. And look, he's not the biggest. I think he was listed at like 5'9", and I think that's the thing that's really holding him back from getting offers. But when I turn on the tape, I see a guy who's fast, and I will say fast I think he needs to grow his speed to still play at the next level, at a high level, but that can be grown with time too. The reaction and the IQ are what really stood out to me. The play recognition, like boom, I see where I got to go. I'm sprinting, I'm getting there in time, and I'm making the play. Love that. Just plays hard every time. Does a good job of wrapping up. He's really tough. He has nice hands as well. I thought he battled well in coverage, despite only being 5'9" a few times too. And he also changed his direction pretty well. Already mentioned doing a good job wrapping up too. That was just something that popped in my opinion as well. So this is a guy in Brown who, look, it's going to be an uphill battle for him to earn major snaps because he's not the tallest. And the truth is, the measurements matter. We just talked about why we're excited about Caleb Lohner because of his measurements and not because he's played any football. He's literally the opposite of Isaiah Brown, but one is 6'8", and that's and 235. And Brown, as I mentioned, is like kind of that 5'9", right in that range. And that's just, you don't see a lot of successful corners at that height. But Utah football was built on these kind of guys, smart players that come in, buy in, and work hard. And that's why I'm interested and excited to see what Brown can do. I think this is a really nice walk-on pickup.
I agree, JT, and I think we watched the same tape because I had very similar notes. I really liked Brown's football instincts. I liked his IQ. His tackling impressed me. I also made a note about he looked really good making open field tackles, wrapping up. He went low, went for the legs, was good at wrapping up all the receivers and I think some quarterbacks that he tackled. I think he plays bigger than his size. He was making some hits that looked pretty good for a guy that's listed at 5'9", 160 pounds. Played good in press. Obviously, we watched highlights, so we saw all the good stuff. But I think another thing, he had a high ankle sprain in 2024, and that really limited his snaps. I assume that also led to him not getting many offers and having to walk on at the University of Utah. But it's a really interesting pickup. I think it has a ton of upside. Obviously, we both watched the tape, and he has a lot of things that he really does well. Ran a 4.52 40, I think. So decently fast. Obviously, he's going to grow into his speed as he comes to college, gets weight training in, continues growing and working. But yeah, Isaiah Brown's really interesting to me. In terms of size, I'm not saying skill. In terms of size, he kind of reminds me of Clark Phillips.
Sure.
Which is Clark Phillips. He's a smart football player, maybe a little bit undersized, but he's in the NFL now. He obviously succeeded, did something right at the University of Utah. So we'll see. I think Brown could potentially have something similar happen.
Yeah, I'm excited to see him. I think it's something that's going to take some time. It'd probably be a few years before we hear his name called. If he doesn't hit the portal before then, because a lot of guys do tend to do that. But definitely rooting for him based on what I saw on tape. So excited to see what Brown will have the opportunity to do with Utah this summer once he gets up there in August. But before we get to August, we have some big time players that are visiting the University of Utah. The first of those is going to be Westlake defensive end Nusi Teo Moi Pao. And I apologize if I mispronounced that name, but Nusi's a guy who I looked at coming out of Westlake High School, 6'2", 220 pounds. This is a guy who's a 3-star defensive end, and he's coming up to the University of Utah to make his official visit on June 14th, also visiting Stanford on the 7th and Cal on the 21st. But this is a guy who ranks as the 862nd player in the country, the 66th edge. He's the 10th overall player in the state of Utah. And you look at his stats of what he did last year at Westlake, 48 total tackles, 12 tackles for loss, and also 3 added sacks. And that's the first thing that stands out to me is those tackles for loss. This is a guy who is extremely fast off the edge. I know we just talked about speed with Brown, but Nusi has the linebacker quickness. Like he sees ball, and it's like, boom, he breaks on it. Like there is a different level. The level of linebacker speed, like this is 3-star speed. You see why this is a hot commodity, a top 10 player in the state of Utah currently, right? Like he's extremely athletic. The change of direction abilities are there. The open field tackling, what he could offer as a blitzer, I think is really impressive too. Does a good job standing up blockers too, can really get around blocks. From what I saw, I didn't see much of a pass rushing repertoire. So he actually might be a guy that I look at like, okay, you're 6'2", 220 right now. I want you to play inside linebacker because you are such a good tackler in space, because you do such a good job reading defenses, because when you see gaps, you shoot right through it and you're strong enough to make big hits, jar the ball loose and break things up. I didn't see a pass rusher. He's listed as a D-end outside linebacker. I see an inside linebacker more at the University of Utah. But I think this is a guy who, if he was to get to Utah, I would love to see Colton Swan get his hands on him. And when you have that kind of a speed at the linebacker position, you can do dangerous things at the next level.
Yeah, I like that you mentioned if Nusi did come to the University of Utah making that switch to linebacker, because I think he could develop as an edge, but he has all the qualities of a linebacker, like you mentioned, that speed, 6'2", 225. He's a guy that could really fit in as a linebacker at the collegiate level. Obviously, top 10 player in the state for a reason, because he's athletic and he's produced on the field. But I would love to see him commit to Utah, maybe think about becoming a linebacker. But even if he does commit to Utah, wants to stay on the line, I can't wait to see Luther Ellis just get his hands on him, continue to work on him. Utah is one of the best in the country, I think, at developing defensive talent, especially defensive line talent. So it would be really exciting to see Nusi come to the U.
Yeah, if he was going to be an edge, we got to get him on a weight plan too. He's got to add some more muscle and strength. Like 220 as a D end at Utah, I just don't think that would be tough right now. But that's what's nice about him being a 2025 guy. Still has the entire fall season to get through, and even probably a red shirt. Like it's rare to see freshman DNs contribute right away too. Spencer Fano kind of spoiled us with how well he played overall, even with some woes as a freshman. That's not normal. And speaking of offensive linemen, let's move now to Aaron Dunn, the Spanish fork tackle, 6'8", 285. This goes back to what we talked about with Lohner, where it's just a size thing. I mean, when you turn on the tape, this is what a college football player looks like. And he's still in high school, so he's absolutely steamrolling dudes out here. This is a guy, I used to do Utah football, run a recruiting site. And this was a guy I remember having ranked high even back then because he's just big and strong. He's athletic too. He can get out in space and steamroll people. Really good puller too. And he just needs to continue to refine his technique. To me, obviously plays a little high because he's 6'8" like that. But I think that's something that you continue to work on too as you get to the next level. And the strength is there. But I mean, he has all the tools in the world to be an unreal tackle prospect, and not in the NFL draft. Honestly, I'll even go that far and say like that's the kind of future I could potentially see for a guy like an Aaron Dunn, right? And you're looking at when he's going to visit. Blair Ungolo reported that he's going to take his Utah visit on June 14th. So a lot of these Utah guys are going to be up here then. These are the in-state type of players, both Dunn and Nusi, that I think are paramount for Utah to continue to land as they hope to stay at the forefront of college football. And I really like what Dunn has done. I think he's another guy who, like we mentioned, Spencer Fano would have a chance to start right away once he got up to Utah if he was an early enrollee and got a little bit of more coaching.
Yeah, Dunn's going into his senior year of high school, and he already has collegiate, if not NFL, size. He could play at those levels. He's 6'8", 290. I just saw Joe Alt get drafted by the Chargers at number 5. That's a gigantic human, and Dunn matches him in terms of
Yeah.
size. I think it's going to be an uphill battle for Utah to land him. Obviously, he's an in-state guy, and that definitely helps our chances. But he took a visit to USC and Oregon in April. I think BYU and UCLA are also trying to vie for him. But it would be amazing to see him come to Utah and join just the young core that Utah has in terms of tackles. I think this season, Caleb Lohner and Spencer Fano are going to start on the edges. And I mean, those guys are young. Fano's going into his second year. Lohner's just coming in. So it might take a little bit. Obviously, Dunn would have plenty of time to develop behind those guys. But yeah, 6'8", 290. Who wouldn't want Aaron Dunn protecting their quarterback? And he would be a great addition to Utah's 2025 class. I think missing out on Jerome Miles really hurt that number 2 player in the state. That one really hurt Utah. But getting Dunn would definitely help ease the pain with that loss.
Absolutely agree. And Miles is still going to take his visit to Utah, so never say never there. Although I would be surprised if he did decide. I mean, the Wilson factor is what I still give a chance. He had the opportunity to play again with Isaac Wilson after their repertoire in college. I think Utah still has a shot there, but you're right. I don't feel outstanding about it either. So it's going to be interesting to see how Utah ends up making it out in the class of 2025. And we had a lot of time to talk about the exciting recruits that'll be coming up to Utah this fall, because there are plenty of them that are still set to make their visits and could potentially be additions to this team in the fall of 2025. Not this fall, as I stated, but we're getting excited for football season. It's closing in. One thing that wasn't exciting is seeing Deivon Smith officially commit to St. John's. He was in the portal, probably wasn't coming back, but you think like, just maybe, and then you see him commit and you know it's final. So we're going to talk about him departing the University of Utah basketball program in one moment. But first, want to talk to you all about one of the sponsors of today's episode of Locked On Utes, our friends at Monopoly Go. All right, game off. We got to pause here, talk more about Monopoly Go. I know what you're saying. Flag on the play. You already talked about that. But there's just so much good stuff in this game. And Monopoly Go, you can team up with friends for time tournaments where you're working together to build up each other's boards. The more you win together, the more awesome prizes you unlock. And there's so much more to get, whether it's unique stickers you can trade with friends to complete albums for prizes. There's also cool new playing pieces to travel the boards with, hilarious emojis for taunting friends when you smash their buildings or heist their vaults. Plus, Monopoly Go feels new and exciting every day with constantly changing tournaments and challenges, a ton, including their own unique mini games like digging for treasure or a robot machine. And there's always new timed events that help you win big, like a massive multiplayer for everything you win or rent frenzies. There's always something fun to discover in Monopoly Go. So get off the bench and go download it now, free on the Google Play or the App Store. Game on with Monopoly Go. All right, Austin. Deivon Smith is now a member of St. John's. He went and joined Rick Pitino's squad. Last year, Smith with the team averaged 13 a game, 6 rebounds, 7 assists, 46% overall from the field, and was a triple-double machine. Set the Pac-12 single-season triple-double record in his final season. Obviously made him a hot commodity in the transfer portal, so not surprising to see the 6-foot athletic guard find a new home in the Big East. You know, he was at Georgia Tech, came out to Utah, now goes back over towards the East Coast more. It's a tough loss for Utah. Utah basketball, obviously not in the greatest place right now. On Friday's show, I spoke about the whole thing going on, obviously, where you're losing Chris Burgess to BYU. And we already mentioned you like just the recruiting, some of their strikeouts they've had there. It's been a rough go for the men's basketball program, and sucks to see Deivon go and know officially, like, even if there was a sliver of a chance to come back, he's not coming back. And Utah's definitely worse without him than they would have been.
Yeah, man, it hurts. It feels like just yesterday we were talking about Deivon's eligibility and being super excited that he was granted eligibility this year and able to play for Utah. And then he bursts onto the scene, 5 triple doubles, like one of the best guards Utah's had in a really long time. And now he's gone. and it hurts. And you can't really blame him joining Rick Pitino. That's a hard program to go up against. I think he was also looking at Kentucky. So there's some heavy hitters wanting Deivon to come, and in the end, St. John's got him. But yeah, it just adds. It's like it's a knife through the heart in what's been a rough couple of weeks for the Utah basketball program. Obviously, with DeMarlo and Chris Burgess both leaving, and then Kaba hitting the transfer portal, Rolly, Forster leaving. Now Deivon. It hurts. It hurts when you last season was obviously going really good until it wasn't, and then it seems like it's just gone downhill for the last month or two. But I think Utah got a transfer from Wake Forest today, so
He did. Yep.
there's always hope, right?
Yeah, and he's got some potential. Didn't do a ton at Wake Forest. Had actually his best game against Utah. So hopefully Craig Smith and his staff are able to parlay that into more success come this fall. Going to be something that's interesting to watch and see it all play out. And you mentioned it, Austin. It hasn't been the greatest stretch for Utah basketball with some of the things they've lost out on, but it has been a good stretch for you as you recently graduated from the University of Utah. For anyone who is listening to this podcast, the only reason they're 24 minutes into it now is they love the University of Utah. So, Austin, what will you look back on most fondly during your time at the U?
Oh man. There's so many things. I'm from California. Coming to Utah was a gamble. I knew nothing about this state. I had only been to Southern Utah, but man, I love Salt Lake now. I love Utah. I love Utah sports. Some of the best moments I've ever had were at Utah football games, just watching Cam Rising trounce through the end zone to beat USC, rushing the field, going to the Rose Bowl against Ohio State. Even though we lost, that was, I think, the best sporting event I've ever been to in my entire life. And man, getting to write about Utah sports with FanNation, getting to be on this podcast talking about it. I mean, these are dreams of mine. I love talking about sports. So getting to do it with you, getting to do it with Sports Illustrated on FanNation has just been a dream come true.
Well, you do a great job there. So make sure you guys head over, as you always do when you come on this show too, Austin. So make sure you guys head over to FanNation on YouTube if you want to check out Austin's stuff. His X handle is at Austin Eames 55. And Austin, thank you again for joining us.
Thank you, JT. This is awesome, man.
Always great talking to you. That's going to do it for today's edition of Locked On Utes. We'll be back with you tomorrow talking more things in the world of Utah football and Utah athletics. We look forward to seeing you then.